Post 1. Am I the jerk for asking my sister not to treat us like tenants? I am a 29-year-old woman, pregnant with my first baby, and I feel like I'm being punished forever for something stupid I did at 17. My half sister vanished, turned herself into some real estate queen, and now that I'm trying to fix things before the baby comes, everyone is acting like I'm some gold digging villain. For context, I'm the other daughter. Same dad, different moms. My mom left when I was little. Dad got full custody of me, and his second wife, my sister's mom, basically raised me. So, growing up, we were just sisters. Nobody said half unless they were trying to hurt us. Mara was the golden one. Smart, quiet, straight A's, always with a book. She helped mom with bills and appointments. Teachers adored her. Adults would say, "You're going to go far, Mara," while I was standing right there. I was the pretty one, the social one, the one who struggled with school and got distracted. Translation: if anything went wrong, everyone already half expected it to be me. When mom got sick, that dynamic calcified. Mara went into full caretaker mode. She practically lived at the hospital. She'd come home exhausted and still put on laundry, wipe the counters, remind Dad about prescriptions. Dad looked at her with this serious pride I don't think he's ever turned on me. My role was keep things normal. I stayed home with Dad, kept the TV on, tried to keep spirits up. I couldn't handle hospitals. The smell made me faint. The one time I went, the IV beeped and I nearly passed out. Everyone treated that as proof I was weak. Nobody seemed to notice how hard it was watching everything fall apart and being the one expected to smile. Enter Evan. Evan was Mara's high school boyfriend. At first, he was just Mara's. Then mom's cancer got worse, and he was over constantly, helping with odd jobs, bringing takeout, sitting with Dad pretending everything was normal. People talk about cheating like it's pure evil with no context. I'm not saying what I did was right. I'm saying I was 17. My world was chemo schedules and muffled crying, and Evan was the only person who actually saw me. He'd poke his head in and say, "You okay, kid?" and actually listen. He told me I was smart when everyone else called me scatterbrained. He made me laugh when I could hear Dad crying in the bathroom at night. Those tiny things felt huge. It started with talk. Him staying behind when Mara went to the hospital. Him saying he felt lonely, like Mara had disappeared into caretaking and had nothing left for him. How he felt like furniture in our house. Messed up, yes. But at 17, what I heard was, "You matter." One night, Mom had a bad reaction to chemo. Mara and Dad stayed overnight. Evan came by with food. In case anyone needed anything, found only me, and we ended up talking for hours. When he kissed me, it felt like someone had reached into the black hole I'd been falling through and grabbed my hand. In my head, it wasn't, "I'm stealing my sister's boyfriend." It was, "Oh my God, I'm alive." We didn't sit down and plan to sleep together. It happened. We were stupid, grieving kids who wanted to feel something that wasn't fear. The day Mara walked in on us is burned into my brain. Her face went from shock to something I still can't name. I grabbed for words and came out with, "We just connected," and things got confusing. I know how awful that sounds now, but I was half-dressed, 17, and watching my life explode. Dad came running. He saw me sobbing. Evan pale, Mara shaking. He did what he always does. Tried to shut it down before it got loud. "Everyone calm down. We'll talk. We've been through too much already." People act like he chose me over her. What I saw was a man trying to keep the house from burning down while we all stood there with matches. What nobody acknowledges is that I paid for that mistake. Evan moved out. Mara packed a bag and disappeared. Dad walked around like a ghost. Neighbors whispered. People at church looked at me like I had poison on my skin. Nobody wanted nuance. Just the headline, "Girl sleeps with dying mom's boyfriend." When mom's will was read, the house went to Mara. Full stop. Not split between the kids, not to Tom, my husband, just Mara. The letter the lawyer gave her was private, but I didn't need to read it to know the gist. "You're the responsible one. Take care of things." Once again, I was the extra. But then Mara did the good daughter thing. She said Dad and I could stay, that it was still our home. She moved out to some basement apartment, got a job, started flipping places. I stayed. I kept an eye on Dad. I did the shopping, the cooking, the grave visits. I was the one who lived in that house day to day, even if my name wasn't on paper. Flash forward 8 years. Mara's on the cover of the local business section, standing in front of a building like it's a trophy. Self-made real estate investor, inspiring story, all that. I felt this weird mix of pride and anger. Pride because she really did it. Anger because she did it by disappearing and pretending we didn't exist, while I stayed and did the emotional labor nobody claps for. In the meantime, Evan and I found our way back to each other. No fairy tale, just two messed up people who'd been through a lot trying to make something work. He has a job, but it's not high paying. I work part-time. We scrape by. Then I found out I was pregnant. Pregnancy hit me like a truck. It wasn't just, oh no, a baby. It was every good and bad memory at once. Suddenly, I cared about whether this kid had a grandfather, an aunt, some sense of belonging. I did not want my child to grow up hearing about some ghost sister they never met. So yes, I reached out. We texted, we called, we asked Aunt Carol to help. I wanted to apologize, to explain, to say, we were stupid kids, I know we hurt you, but can we please be a family again before this baby gets here? I naively thought that, after all these years and seeing how well she was doing, she might be ready to let go of the worst version of me in her head. Instead, she treated me like a greedy stranger who'd Googled her net worth. She kept throwing out, "You slept with my boyfriend while our mother was dying." Like that's the only sentence that exists about me. She kept saying she's been supporting us because she pays taxes and insurance on the house, as if me cleaning it, fixing it, and living there with Dad is meaningless. And now she's talking about leases and rent and turning Maple Street into a formal rental for her own father and pregnant sister. Full market rate or move out. She's saying this to a man in his late 50s with health issues and to me at 7 months pregnant. I get that we hurt her. I really do. But there has to be a limit on how long one mistake gets to define someone. I'm trying to fix things. She's turning our home into leverage. So, from my side, am I the jerk for wanting my sister back in my life now that I'm pregnant and struggling? After the way I hurt her when we were teenagers, and for feeling like making her own dad and half-sister pay full rent or move is cold and over the line? Update 1. I did not expect that article to blow everything up. For years, life was awful but simple. Mara was gone. I was here. Dad and I made do. We knew the house was technically in her name, but in every way that mattered, it was our home. I cleaned, painted, fixed what I could. Dad did the heavy stuff until his back gave out. We paid utilities, groceries, gas. It annoyed me that she never offered to help, but I told myself, fine, she's grieving her own way. Then the business article dropped. Full color photo of her leaning against a brick building like she invented walls. From grief to growth was the headline. They talked about Mom's death like a character-building detail. They mentioned starting with a modest inheritance from her mother and building a multi-property portfolio before 30. That modest inheritance was our entire safety net. She used it to launch. We used it to survive. I saw it on Facebook. Aunt Carol posted it with, "So proud of our Mara." Heart emojis everywhere. She looked good, confident, expensive. I felt jealousy and relief at the same time. At least she was okay. At least we hadn't destroyed her. I showed Dad. "Look at that, Miss Big Shot," he grunted, then softer. "Good for her, I guess." That's when I said, "We should call her." He hesitated. "You think she wants to hear from us?" "We're still her family," I said. "And I'm pregnant. Do you want your grandkid to grow up never knowing their aunt because we were too proud to pick up the phone?" He misses her. He'll never admit it, but he does. I offered to be the one to apologize, to take the first step. Yes, part of me was thinking about money and stability. I'm not going to lie. But I also genuinely wanted her back in our lives. He called her and got a coffee meetup. I begged to come. He said he'd feel it out. I didn't trust that, so I came late on purpose. Walking into that diner and seeing her was jarring. She looked like the article. Sleek coat, nice bag, nails done. I suddenly became very aware of my thrift store cardigan and the bleach stain on my leggings. I overcompensated with, "Oh my God, you look amazing," because I didn't know what else to do. She said, "I didn't know this was a group thing," in that calm, tight way that makes you feel like you've already messed up. We did awkward chit-chat. I told her I was pregnant, that it was Evan's, that I wanted the baby to have an aunt and a grandfather. I used all the "it takes a village" language I've seen online. She just stared. When I tried to say things got messy back then, she cut me off with, "You want my money?" That stung because it was half true and half completely missing the point. Yes, we're struggling. Yes, the house needs work. But I wasn't asking for a yacht. I was hoping for, "Let's wipe the slate clean. I'll help you get on your feet for the baby, and we'll move on." When she dropped that she pays the property tax and insurance, I felt my face heat. I knew she handled legal stuff in some vague way. I didn't know numbers. Hearing her list them made me feel like a freeloader, even though I'm the one scrubbing toilets and calling plumbers. Instead of saying, "Thank you," my brain went defensive. If I admitted gratitude, it felt like admitting guilt. She left colder than she arrived. Later that night, we got her email. It said we remember events differently, that she's not an ATM, that she'd meet once in a neutral place, just the three of us. She listed how long we'd lived there rent-free like we were a bad account. It felt clinical, like we were tenants she inherited, not her father and sister. I sent it to Aunt Carol. "Does this sound reasonable?" She said, "She's being harsh, but it's a start. Maybe if she sees everyone together, she'll soften." That's where the birthday dinner idea came from. Yes, it was strategic. I know Mara freezes one-on-one. She always has. We figured if she saw everyone, cousins, church ladies, people who loved Mom, maybe she'd remember we're human, not just numbers, and stop treating everything like a contract. Was it manipulative? Maybe. In my head, it was. Big gesture, witnesses, proof I'm trying. I thought standing up and apologizing in front of everyone would show her I wasn't hiding. I did not expect it to backfire as hard as it did. Update 2. The birthday dinner was supposed to be my "I'm not a kid anymore" moment. Aunt Carol's house was full: balloons, cake, cousins, church ladies. And right by the punch bowl, the article about Mara, printed and framed. I knew instantly Mara would hate it. When she walked in, everyone did the "look who it is" thing. She scanned the room, saw the article, saw me, and her expression went from wary to done in about 3 seconds. She said hello to Dad, nodded at me like I was a coworker, and hovered by the door. We did cake first. For a few minutes, it almost felt normal. Then Aunt Carol clinked her glass and handed me the floor. I'd written and rewritten a speech, but didn't pull the paper out. I just talked. I said things went wrong, that we were young and Mom was sick, that I'd felt guilty for years, that I wanted my baby to have an aunt and a grandfather. I used soft words like "got close in a way we shouldn't have," because I physically could not say, "I slept with your boyfriend while Mom was dying" in front of Dad and the church ladies. To me, that felt vulnerable. To Mara, it apparently sounded like spin. She set her plate down very carefully and said, "I'm going to say this once." The room went silent. "Tessa didn't just get close to my boyfriend," she said. "She had an affair with him in my bed while our mother was dying. Dad didn't comfort me. He asked me to not make it awkward for the family. It was like she'd ripped every private shame out of my chest and nailed it to the wall." People stared. Aunt Carol made a strangled sound. "I left," Mara went on. "I built a life without any of you. I paid the bills on the house you're all calling Mom's place. And now, because there's a baby and an article with my face on it, you've decided it's time for a public performance of forgiveness." Public performance. That word burned because, yes, I'd wanted witnesses. I just hadn't expected her to use them as a jury. Dad snapped, "You don't have to drag everyone into our business. You're making us look bad." That's our family motto, honestly. Don't make us look bad. Not don't hurt each other. Just don't make it obvious. "I'm leaving," Mara said. "Do not invite me to another event like this. Do not use my success as a party theme. If you want to talk about boundaries or the house, it will be with lawyers copied on the email." "Lawyers?" Aunt Carol gasped. "Nina, specifically," Mara added. "She's very good at untangling families who think they're entitled to each other's lives." The way she said "entitled" made my face burn. She walked out, that was it. After, everyone talked at once. Aunt Carol cried she never meant for this. Cousins glared at me like I'd tricked them. Someone muttered, "It's always about money with that one," meaning Mara, which would have been funny if my stomach wasn't in my throat. A few days later, the letter came. Firm logo, 2 pages. Words like "sole legal owner," occupants, conversion to formal tenancy, fair market rent, notice to vacate. Dad slammed it down. She's making us tenants, he said, like we're strangers. Seeing allowed to occupy rent-free for 8 years at owner's discretion on paper hurt in a different way. It was true, but it made everything feel cold and transactional. She never once said, "Hey, can you help with taxes?" I snapped. She just did it quietly and now wants credit all at once. Deep down, I knew that was unfair. She had tried to bring it up in her email. We just didn't want to hear that the house we were clinging to as ours was, on paper, hers. Dad declared, "We're not signing." I stared at the line that said, "Refusal to sign may result in notice to vacate," and for the first time, pictured a sheriff at our door. She'll tell people she set boundaries. From where I'm sitting, it felt like my public apology turned into Exhibit A in a case she'd already decided to win. Update 3. I wish I could say I handled the lease letter calmly. I didn't. Dad went full rage. "She can't do this. Your mother would never have wanted this." Under my own anger, what I felt most was humiliation. It wasn't just money. It was the realization that while we'd been telling ourselves we were keeping the house alive, she'd been paying bills we never asked about. Saying that out loud would change everything, so I did what I always do when cornered. I lashed out sideways. I went on Facebook. I didn't name Mara. I wrote, "It's wild how some people forget family the second they get a little money. Some of us stayed, took care of Dad, kept Mom's house going. Others ran off, then come back years later trying to slap leases and rent on their own father, pregnant and still treated like a burden. Guess blood doesn't matter when there are dollar signs in your eyes?" Hit post. Comments flooded in. "You deserve better. Money changes people. We know who really kept that house a home." It felt good for about an hour. Then my cousin sent a screenshot of an email from Mara's lawyer. "We are aware of a social media post implying financial exploitation and abandonment. While we appreciate that family disputes are emotional, we must insist that any false or misleading public statements be removed. Continued publication could have legal consequences." Legal consequences for venting on Facebook. I deleted the post, not because I suddenly thought I was wrong, but because the idea of being sued at 7 months pregnant made me physically ill. Dad said, "Good, no need to give her more ammunition." Then, "Can't even vent without Miss Big Shot's lawyer swooping in." That's when it really sank in. She had power, a deed, a lawyer, and the ability to turn my bad decisions into exhibits. I had feelings and a baby on the way. The house got weirdly quiet after that. Every envelope sounded like doom. Every time I walked past the doorframe where Mom marked our heights, I felt like I was trespassing in my own life. Then the second letter came, "Notice to vacate if no lease signed by X date." Dad went gray. "She's really doing this?" he whispered. "She gave us a choice," I said, hating myself as I said it. "Sign or go." "That's not a choice," he snapped. "That's extortion." I tried calling Mara, voicemail. I left a message anyway. "We'd pay something. We couldn't do market rate. Please think about what Mom would want." No answer. Just silence and a ticking deadline. People love to say money doesn't change people. It reveals them. From where I'm standing, grief revealed Mara, and money gave her teeth. And I'm still the one everyone calls selfish. Update 4. The deadline loomed like a storm. We tried pretending nothing was happening. Bought a bassinet, argued about baby names, paid the hydro bill, but every time the mailbox clanged, I felt my blood pressure spike. When my cousin casually mentioned seeing Mara at one of her buildings every Thursday, something in me snapped. "If she won't call me back," I said, "I'll go to her." Dad said, "That's her turf. She'll talk down to you in front of her crew." "Good," I said. "Let her see I'm a human being." We went. The building was nice. Fresh paint, shiny lobby, fake plants that somehow looked expensive. I felt like someone was going to ask if I was lost. She came down the stairs in a hard hat and boots, talking to contractors. For a second, I saw the girl who used to translate Mom's medical forms, just taller and scarier. Her face shut down when she saw us. "You can't show up at my job," she said. "What do you want?" "We can't sign that thing," I blurted. "We can't afford that rent. Have you seen prices, daycare, formula? You're asking us to pick between diapers and paying you to stay in the only home we've ever had." You've been living there rent-free for almost a decade, she said. I've paid taxes, insurance, major repairs. You're not choosing between diapers and some new cruelty. You're choosing between finally contributing and moving. Each word landed like its own slap. Rent-free, contributing, moving. Dad said, "We're not saying we'll never pay anything, but full market rent? For your own father?" "You're not strangers," she said. "That's why this hurts. If you were, I'd have raised the rent 3 times and slept fine. Being my father doesn't mean the bills pay themselves." Then she turned to me. "And you don't get to weaponize your pregnancy," she said. "I didn't get you pregnant. I didn't tell you to stay in a house you don't own and never plan ahead. I've been subsidizing your life in silence for years. That ends now." I said the only thing I had left. "You're going to make your niece or nephew homeless. Do you hear how that sounds?" "What I hear," she said, "is that you think having a baby entitles you to my assets. It doesn't." Dad pulled out the mom card. "Your mother would be ashamed." "I'm done letting you use her to control me," Mara said. "You have 2 weeks to sign the lease. If you truly can't do full market, we can talk about a small discount. But it will be rent, with due dates and consequences. If you don't sign, Nina files the eviction. I'd rather not. I will." She left us standing in an empty unit that felt like a preview of our future. At home, we went in circles. Dad. "Over my dead body I sign. Evan." "She's bluffing." Me. "She's not." Finally, I sat Dad down. "I can't have this baby homeless," I said. "I won't." "She wins if I sign," he said. "She already won," I snapped. "Her name is on the deed. We're arguing about how ugly losing looks." We stared at each other. For once, he didn't have an answer. I called Mara again. She actually picked up. "We'll sign," I said. "But we can't do full market. Is there any room for a family rate?" Long pause. "I'll knock 10% off," she said. "Not because you're entitled, but because I don't want to be the reason a kid doesn't eat. You'll sign a proper lease. You'll pay on time. All maintenance goes through the portal. If you ambush me again or drag me online, I won't renew. No scenes, no begging, just done. 10%. That was her version of mercy. The next day, Dad and I sat at the computer and pulled up the lease. Seeing tenant Thomas last name broke something in both of us. His hand shook when he clicked the signature box. When it was my turn, I felt like I was signing a confession. Yes, we need her. Yes, she can evict us if we cross another invisible line. We signed. Rent started coming out every month. We cut everything. Cheaper phone plan. No dinners out. I did nails in the kitchen for cash. Every time I hit submit payment, I saw that framed article in my head and felt a mix of resentment and grudging relief. She tells it as finally treating us like adults. I live in the version where my big reconciliation ended with my dad becoming his own daughter's tenant. Final update. 3 years later. 3 years later, my life is smaller than I imagined, and I still don't know if that's punishment, consequence, or just adulthood. We lasted exactly 1 lease term at Maple Street. Once the shock wore off, the lease did make things simple. Money went out, water stayed hot, roof didn't leak. The house felt weirdly stable for the first time. No more waiting for the other shoe to drop. It had a due date on the first of every month. The baby came a month after the lease started. Labor was brutal. Evan almost fainted. Dad cried. Bringing her home made the house feel new and ancient at once. Same creaks, same kitchen. But now there was this tiny person who didn't care whose name was on the deed. For a little while, that made everything else feel small. Mara didn't visit. She sent a card. No gift, no note, just a generic, "Congratulations on your new arrival," with her name printed underneath. Dad said, "See, she's trying." I kept the card even though I tell people I threw it out. The first year was tight. We cut costs, worked extra, juggled. Every time I paid rent, I felt that double-edged thing. Anger that I was paying my sister to live where my mother raised me. Gratitude that at least the roof wasn't in danger. We barely saw Mara. Once I caught her car slowing in front of the house before driving on. No knock, no text, just that flash of her profile. It felt like being watched and abandoned at the same time. She popped up in another article about young women shaping the local housing market. She talked about making hard decisions early and treating every property like a business, even when emotions are involved. I knew Maple Street was in that sentence, even if she never said the address. When the lease was up, the renewal email came. We could stay another year at a slightly higher rent, market had gone up, Nina made sure to note, or give 60 days notice. No guilt, just check a box. With the increase, we'd be one emergency away from disaster. One car repair, one missed paycheck, and we'd be choosing between rent and formula. We can't do it, Evan said. Not and keep our heads above water. The thought of leaving that house felt like ripping up a photo album. But the thought of staying and funneling everything into my sister's portal while Dad and I slowly drowned wasn't better. So we clicked, give notice. Her only reply was through the portal. Notice received. Final inspection date attached. Please ensure property is broom clean and all keys returned. Broom clean. We spent 2 months packing our lives into boxes. Baby toys, Dad's tools, Mom's chipped mugs. I kept tracing the faint pencil marks on the doorframe where Mom measured us. Mine stops around 14. Mara's goes almost to the top. Of course it does. On inspection day, Mara came with a clipboard and a contractor. She walked through each room like she was seeing work orders, not memories. Scuffed walls, chipped tiles, broken stair slat. She noted everything. The only time her face softened was when my daughter toddled past her with a stuffed rabbit. She's cute, Mara said. Yeah, I said. For a second, I almost asked, do you want to hold her? The words stuck. The last time I handed Mara something fragile, our relationship, she walked out and took the deed with her. I wasn't handing over my kid as another test. We moved into a 2-bedroom near the highway. Beige walls, thin carpet, loud neighbors. The rent is lower, but not by as much as I'd hoped. The landlord fixes things when he feels like it. There are no pencil marks, no garden, no Mom's mug in the sink. It's not home yet, but it's ours in a way Maple Street never really was. Dad complains constantly. Your sister drove us out. He tells anyone who'll listen. All so she could rent that place to strangers for her precious market rate. People nod. Some agree. Some just change the subject. I complain too, in my own way. To friends, coworkers, sometimes to my daughter at 3 a.m. when she can't sleep and I'm exhausted and still mad at a woman who doesn't hear it. And yet, in the quiet moments, other thoughts creep in, ones I'd never say out loud. Like, she didn't have to let us stay free for 8 years. She could have sold Maple Street the second the will cleared. She didn't, and I built my life on a foundation I knew, deep down, wasn't really mine. Or, if I hadn't slept with Evan, if I'd found any other boy to feel seen by, would any of this have happened? Would Mara have stayed? Would Mom have split things differently? Would we be fighting over pizza toppings instead of leases? Then I remember the birthday dinner, her standing there calling it an affair in my bed while our mother was dying, the lawyer letters, the portal. I remember her looking me in the eye and saying, "You're not entitled to my assets." The anger comes back, hot and simple, and it's easier than sitting with the what-ifs. We're no contact now, not officially declared, just silence. No calls, no cards, no aunt-niece relationship. My daughter knows Grandpa Tom and that Mommy's sister lives in the city, but there's no face for aunt. Maybe that will change when my kid is old enough to ask her own questions. Maybe I'll have to sit down with all of this and decide how much truth to give her. Right now, all I can manage is this. I am still the girl who did a horrible, selfish thing at 17. I am also the woman who stayed, cooked, changed sheets, held her dad's hand at the grave, got pregnant, signed a lease, and moved out when the math stopped working. Mara is still the girl who took care of Mom when none of us could. She's also the woman who turned a family home into leverage, hired lawyers to shut me up, and watched our father sign tenant under his own name without blinking. I don't know if that makes either of us the jerk or both of us just very damaged products of the same house. What I do know is she's living her from grief to growth story, and I'm in a highway apartment with a kid who thinks the universe starts and ends with my voice. Maybe someday that will be enough for me to forgive her, or myself.